The night Eliza Vance killed her first man, she wasn't supposed to survive the winter. Hell, the town didn't think she'd last a week. They saw a woman too soft for the frontier, too heavy, too weak. They were dead wrong. This is the story of how a runaway wife became something no one expected, how a mountain man learned strength doesn't come in the package you imagine, and how blood in the snow changed everything. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you back to where it started. The stagecoach rattled into Iron Ridge like a dying animal, spitting mud and misery across the settlement that barely deserved the name town. 3 buildings. Maybe 4 if you counted the half-collapsed trading post. The rest was tents, rotting timber, and men who'd run so far from civilization they'd forgotten what it looked like. Rowan Hale stood outside the supply depot, arms crossed, jaw tight. 28 years old and already carved down to essentials by this god-forsaken wilderness. Tall, lean, with hands that could break a man's neck or set a broken bone with equal efficiency. His beard was dark, threaded with premature gray, and his eyes, pale blue, almost colorless, held the kind of stillness that came from watching too many things die. He wasn't here for supplies. He was here for a wife. The arrangement had been simple, clinical even. He'd sent money south with a traveling merchant, along with specific requirements. Someone practical, someone who understood hardship, someone who wouldn't romanticize what life at 8,000 feet actually meant. No illusions, no expectations beyond survival. The merchant had written back, "Found you a woman, practical as you asked. She'll be on the spring coach." That was 4 months ago. Now the coach door swung open and Rowan's stomach dropped. The woman who emerged wasn't what he'd requested. Not even close. She was young, mid-20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a braid that had given up halfway through the journey. Her face was round, flushed from the altitude, and her body... Christ. She was heavy, not just sturdy or thick-boned, but genuinely heavy-set in a way that made every eye in the settlement turn and stare. Her coat strained across her middle, her dress bunched awkwardly at the waist. When she stepped down, one foot slipped in the mud, and she caught herself against the coach with a gasp that turned into a cough. The thin mountain air already attacking her lungs. Rowan heard the whispers start immediately. "That's Hale's mail order? Jesus, she won't make it to his cabin. Probably keel over halfway up. Altitude alone will kill her." What the hell was he thinking? He wasn't thinking. That was the problem. He'd trusted someone else to think for him, and now he was staring at a woman who looked like she belonged in a city parlor, not a mountain that had killed stronger people than her. She turned, scanning the crowd, and her eyes found his. They were dark, intelligent, and absolutely terrified. But she didn't look away. She walked straight toward him, breathing hard, each step deliberate. When she stopped in front of him, she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "Rowan Hale?" Her voice was steady despite the breathlessness. Eastern accent, educated. "That's me. Eliza Vance." She didn't offer her hand, just stood there waiting. Rowan studied her. Up close he could see the details the crowd had missed. Her coat was expensive, or had been, before the journey destroyed it. Her boots were wrong for terrain like this, already mud-soaked and splitting at the seams. But her eyes, those eyes weren't soft. They were calculating, measuring, fighting. "You're not what I asked for," he said flatly. "No." She didn't flinch. "I imagine I'm not." "This isn't charity work, Miss Vance. I need someone who can handle—" "I know what you need." She cut him off, voice dropping. "You need someone who won't die in 6 months. Someone who can work. Someone who won't ask questions you don't want to answer." That stopped him. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I can learn. I can work. I won't complain and I won't leave. But if you turn me away right now, I'm dead within the week. Not being dramatic. That's just fact. So you decide. Take me up that mountain or leave me here to freeze in the street." The desperation in her words was real, but underneath it, there was something else. Something harder. Rowan glanced past her at the crowd still watching. The merchant who'd arranged this was nowhere in sight, probably already 3 towns away, spending Rowan's money. He looked back at Eliza. Every practical bone in his body screamed this was a mistake. She was too soft, too inexperienced, too obviously unsuited for life at altitude. The climb alone would wreck her, and if she somehow survived that, the winter would finish the job. But there was something in her eyes that reminded him of a cornered animal, dangerous, unpredictable, and maybe, just maybe, worth the gamble. "One condition," he said. She waited. "You don't make it up the mountain. I'm not carrying you. You fall behind. You're on your own. Understood?" "Understood. And once we're up there, you pull your weight or you leave. Nope, no second chances." "Fine." He studied her one more time, looking for hesitation. Found none. "Then get your things. We leave in 10 minutes. Eliza had 2 bags. One canvas duffel, worn and patched. One leather satchel, locked, which she kept pressed against her side like it contained her soul. Rowan loaded the duffel onto the pack mule without comment. When he reached for the satchel, her hand shot out. "I'll carry that one." He raised an eyebrow. "It's a 6-hour climb. Everything you don't need goes on the mule." "I need this." They locked eyes. For a moment, Rowan considered pushing, then he decided it wasn't worth the fight. "Your funeral." They left Iron Ridge behind with the sun already past noon. Too late for a safe climb, but Rowan wasn't about to spend the night in town fielding questions and stares. Better to push hard and make camp halfway. The trail started gentle. Packed earth, gradual incline. Nothing worse than a bad day's hike. Eliza lasted 20 minutes. Then she started slowing. Rowan didn't stop, didn't turn around. Just kept walking at the steady ground-eating pace that had carried him up and down this mountain for 3 years. Behind him, he heard her breathing get ragged, heard her stumble, heard the mule's hooves shift as she grabbed its harness to steady herself. Still didn't stop. After an hour, the trail got serious. Switchbacks carved into loose shale, the path narrowing to barely 3 feet wide with a cliff dropping away on one side. The air thinned noticeably, each breath delivering less oxygen than the one before. That's when he heard her fall. Not a big fall, just a slip, a gasp, the sound of someone going down hard on their knees. He stopped, turned. Eliza was on the ground, one hand braced against the cliff face, the other clutching that damn leather satchel. Her face was white except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. Sweat soaked through her dress despite the cold. She was shaking. "Get up," Rowan said. She didn't move. "Get up." Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself to her feet. Her legs trembled. When she took a step, she nearly went down again. Rowan walked back to her, got close enough to see the tears she was fighting to hold back. "You want to quit?" he asked. "No." "Then stop feeling sorry for yourself and move." Something flashed in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or hate. Good. She moved. They made camp 3 hours later, well short of Rowan's usual halfway point. He didn't comment on it, just set up the small tent, built a fire, and started preparing a sparse meal of dried meat and hardtack. Eliza sat on a rock 20 feet away, still clutching the satchel, staring at nothing. She hadn't said a word since the fall. Rowan watched her from the corner of his eye while he worked. She was done. Anyone could see that. Her body had hit its limit, and tomorrow's climb would be twice as hard. She wouldn't make it, but he'd given his word. So tomorrow, he'd watch her fail, and then he'd send her back down with the mule. Simple. He finished cooking and brought her a tin plate. "Eat." She took it without looking at him, ate mechanically, forcing down food her stomach probably didn't want. When she finished, she finally spoke. "How much further?" 4 hours. 5 at the pace you're managing." She absorbed that, nodded. "I'll make it." "You won't." She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time he saw something other than desperation in her face. Determination, raw, stubborn, probably stupid determination. "Watch me," she said. So, the next morning started badly. Eliza could barely stand. Her legs had stiffened overnight, and when she tried to walk, she moved like someone twice her age. Every muscle screamed, her lungs burned with each breath of thin mountain air. Rowan watched her struggle to roll up her bedding, taking 3 times as long as it should have taken. "We can turn back," he said. "No shame in it." "I'm not going back." "Then you better move faster. We've got hard terrain ahead." The morning climb was brutal. The trail turned steep, the switchbacks tighter, the exposure more severe. In places, they had to scramble over loose rock with a 1,000-foot drop just inches away. Eliza fell twice in the first hour.
This story was
But she got
posted
up
on the
both
channel
times.
west of Betrayal.
Rowan found himself
Please do not
watching her more
repost
than the
it in any
trail.
form.
Watching the way she forced herself forward despite obvious pain, the way she never complained, never asked for rest, just kept grinding forward with mechanical persistence. It was stupid, reckless, completely unsustainable. But it was also something he recognized. Around midday, they reached a narrow ledge where the trail curved around a blind corner. The pack mule balked, sensing something wrong. Rowan moved forward to check and found a section of trail completely washed out. Maybe 10 feet of missing path, nothing but a crumbling gap between solid ground. "Damn," he muttered. There was a way across, a sketchy scramble over loose rock using handholds carved by water and time. He'd done it before. Not easy, but manageable. For him. He looked back at Eliza. She was standing 20 feet behind the mule, leaning against the cliff face, looking half dead. "We've got a problem," he said. She pushed off the wall and walked forward, looked at the gap. "How do we cross?" "I'll go first, then I'll guide the mule across. Then you." "What if I can't make it?" He met her eyes. "Then you don't." She stared at the gap for a long moment, then nodded. Rowan crossed first, moving carefully over the unstable ground. Made it to the far side without incident. The mule was trickier. Stubborn, frightened, it fought every step. But eventually, Rowan got it across. Then came Eliza. She approached the gap slowly, studying the route he'd taken. Her face was pale but focused. "Don't think," Rowan called. "Just move, steady and smooth." She stepped onto the loose rock. For the first few feet, she did fine. Slow, but stable. Then her foot slipped. She caught herself, fingers digging into stone, but the movement shifted her weight wrong. The rock under her left foot crumbled. She started to slide. Rowan's hand shot out, grabbing for her, but she was too far, the angle all wrong. And then somehow, she stopped herself. Fingers jammed into a crack, feet finding purchase on stone barely wider than her boot, body pressed flat against the cliff face. She hung there, breathing hard, eyes wide. "Don't look down," Rowan said. "Look at me, just me." Her eyes found his. 3 more feet. "You can make it." She didn't respond, just started moving again, inch by inch, hand over hand. When she finally reached the solid ground, she collapsed to her knees, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Rowan gave her 30 seconds. "Get up, we're losing light." She got up. They reached the cabin 2 hours before sunset. It sat in a small clearing, backed against a massive stone outcropping that provided shelter from the worst winds. Solid construction, thick logs, tight chinking, a roof that had survived 3 winters. Smoke pipe jutting from one side, small windows shuttered against the cold. It wasn't much, but it was home. Rowan opened the door and stepped inside. The interior was cold, dark, smelling of old smoke and wood. One room, maybe 15 feet square. Stone fireplace along the back wall. A rough table and 2 chairs. A narrow bed in the corner, shelves holding supplies. Hooks for hanging tools and clothes. Eliza followed him in, still carrying that damn satchel. She looked around without speaking, taking inventory, measuring. "Not what you're used to," Rowan said. "No. You can have the bed. I'll take the floor until we build you a proper bunk." She turned to look at him, surprise flickering across her face. You don't have to." "I do, actually. You're my wife, legally speaking. That means certain expectations. But I'm not interested in complications, and I'm guessing you aren't either. So we'll keep this practical. You do your work, I'll do mine. We survived the winter. Come spring, if you want to leave, I'll take you back down. If you want to stay, we'll figure it out. Sound reasonable?" She studied him for a long moment. "Reasonable," she agreed. "Good. Then let's get this place warm before we freeze to death." Over the next week, Eliza learned what survival actually meant. It meant waking up before dawn to start the fire, because if you didn't, you'd spend the morning too numb to work. It meant hauling water from the spring a 1/4 mile downhill, 2 buckets at a time, until your shoulders screamed. It meant learning to cook over an open fire that behaved nothing like the stove she'd apparently grown up with. It meant chopping wood, which looked simple until you tried it and discovered that every swing took perfect timing, perfect angle, perfect force, or the axe just bounced off and left you gasping. She was terrible at all of it, but she didn't quit. Rowan watched her struggle through those first days with a mixture of frustration and reluctant respect. She had no technique, no efficiency, no natural aptitude for any of this. Everything took her twice as long as it should have. But she kept trying. When the axe bounced off a log for the 10th time, she didn't throw it down and cry. She just reset, adjusted her grip, and swung again. When she burned dinner, she scraped the pot clean and started over without comment. When hauling water left her gasping and dizzy, she sat down for exactly 60 seconds, then picked up the buckets and finished the job. It was the most stubborn thing Rowan had ever witnessed. On the 8th day, she managed to split a log cleanly on the first swing. She stood there staring at the two pieces, breathing hard. Then she picked up another log and did it again. Rowan, watching from the cabin door, felt something shift in his chest. Maybe she wouldn't die after all. But there were cracks in her facade, little things that didn't add up. The way she flinched when Rowan moved too quickly, the way she positioned herself in any room so she could see the door, the way she slept, if you could call it sleep, barely 4 hours a night, waking at the smallest sound. And that leather satchel, she never let it out of her sight, took it with her to the spring, kept it beside her when she worked, slept with it under her pillow. One night, 2 weeks after they'd arrived, Rowan came back early from checking traps. The cabin door was open. Inside, Eliza sat at the table, the satchel open in front of her. She was counting money, not coins, bills, a lot of them. She looked up, saw him, and went absolutely still. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Rowan stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "That's a lot of cash," he said quietly. Eliza's hand moved to something else in the bag, something metal. "Don't," Rowan said. "I'm not going to hurt you, but I need to know what I'm dealing with here." She didn't move. "Who are you running from?" Her jaw tightened. "Eliza Vance isn't your real name, is it?" "It is now." But it wasn't. Silence. Rowan pulled out a chair and sat down across from her, kept his hands visible, his posture open. "I don't care who you were," he said, "or what you did, but if someone's going to come looking for you up here, I need to know about it before they show up with guns." Eliza stared at him, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she spoke. "My husband's name was Marcus Thornhill." The name meant nothing to Rowan. He was a merchant, textile trade, very successful, very connected. "And you left him." "I escaped him." The word choice was deliberate. "He hurt you." "He owned me." Her voice was flat. "Legally, socially, every way that mattered. And when I stopped being useful as decoration, he found other uses for me." Rowan's hands tightened on the table. "So you ran." "I took what he owed me and I left. That money," she gestured at the bills, "is 3 years of my dowry that he invested. I stole it back, along with something else." "What else?" She hesitated, then reached into the satchel and pulled out a small leather journal. Records, accounts, proof of business dealings that would ruin him if they came to light. Smuggling, bribery, worse things. He kept it all documented because he never thought anyone would dare use it against him. "And you took it." "I took it." "So he's not just looking for a runaway wife. He's looking for someone who can destroy him." "Yes." Rowan sat back, processing. This was worse than he'd thought, much worse. "How hard is he looking?" "I don't know. I've been moving for months. Changed my name twice. Paid a forger for papers saying I died in a fire. But if he's determined..." She trailed off. "He'll find you." Eventually. The cabin felt smaller suddenly, more vulnerable. Rowan looked at the woman sitting across from him. Weeks ago, he'd thought her weak, soft, unsuited for this life. Now he saw someone who'd stolen from a powerful man, faked her own death, and climbed a mountain she had no business surviving, all to escape. That wasn't weakness. That was stone-cold determination. "Why tell me?" he asked. Because if they come, you deserve to know why. And because, she met his eyes, you've kept your word, treated me fairly when you had no reason to. That's worth honesty.
This story was
Rowan was quiet
posted
for
on
a
the
moment,
channel
then he
West
stood
of
up.
Betrayal. Please
There's a
do not
rifle on the top
repost it
shelf.
in any
You
form.
know how to shoot? No. Then you're going to learn. If someone comes up this mountain looking for you, I want you able to defend yourself. Eliza stared at him. You're not going to send me away? You're my wife, legally speaking. He said it the same way he had before, practical, unemotional. That means something up here. Someone tries to take you, they'll have to go through me first. Why would you? Because I don't like bullies, and I don't like men who hurt women. His voice was hard. And because you've earned your place here. So we're going to make sure you keep it. For the first time since she'd stepped off that stagecoach, Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. Thank you. Rowan nodded. Tomorrow morning, after chores. Shooting lesson. Okay. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. That journal, you should hide it, somewhere away from the cabin. If they come searching, they won't find it on you. Where? I'll show you a place. Stone cache up the ridge. Waterproof. Been using it for years. All right. He left her there, sitting at the table with her secret spread out in front of her. And for the first time since bringing her up the mountain, Rowan felt like he'd made the right choice. The shooting lessons did not go well. The rifle was too heavy for Eliza's arms. The recoil knocked her back every time. Her aim was terrible, her stance worse, and the thin air made her so breathless she could barely hold the gun steady. But she kept trying. Day after day, they went to a small clearing behind the cabin, and Rowan taught her the basics. How to hold the weapon, how to breathe, how to squeeze the trigger instead of pulling. She missed every target for the first week. Then, on the 8th day, she hit a tree trunk 30 feet away. She stared at the splintered bark, disbelief spreading across her face. Again, Rowan said. She raised the rifle, fired, hit the tree again. Something like pride flashed in her eyes. Not bad, Rowan said. It was the first compliment he'd given her. She smiled, small, brief, but real. Now do it 20 more times. The smile disappeared, but she loaded another round. Go. Winter came early that year. The first snow hit in late October, dumping 2 feet overnight. The temperature plummeted. The world turned white and silent and deadly. They were trapped. The trail down was impassable until spring. No one came up, no one went down. It was just the two of them, the cabin and the mountain. Eliza adapted faster than Rowan expected. She learned to read the weather, learned which chores could wait and which needed doing immediately, learned how to make supplies stretch, how to repair clothes, how to treat frostbite and altitude sickness. She got stronger too. The constant work, the clean air, the simple food, her body changed. Not dramatically, but noticeably. More muscle, more endurance, less wheezing when she climbed the ridge. But the fear never left her eyes. Every unusual sound made her tense. Every shadow at the window drew her attention. She kept the rifle close now, always within reach. Waiting. Rowan noticed, didn't comment. He understood vigilance, understood what it meant to sleep light, always half expecting danger. He just wished he could tell her she was safe. But he couldn't, because he wasn't sure it was true. December brought a brutal cold snap. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze solid in minutes. The wind howled like something alive, shaking the cabin walls, searching for cracks. They burned through firewood faster than planned. On the 23rd, Rowan kept count, though dates barely mattered anymore. They realized they were running low. "We need to cut more," he said, studying their depleted supply. "In this weather? No choice. We run out, we freeze." Eliza looked at the window where snow was piling up against the glass in drifts. "How long will it take?" "Most of the day, maybe longer." "Then we better start now." They bundled up, every layer they owned, and went out into the screaming wind. The cold hit like a physical force. Eliza gasped, and the air burned her lungs. Rowan grabbed her arm, steadying her. "Stay close," he shouted over the wind. "We get separated, you might not find your way back." She nodded, face already numb. They made it to the woodpile, a cluster of dead trees they'd identified weeks ago, just beyond the clearing. Rowan started with the saw, cutting through frozen wood while Eliza gathered the split logs and hauled them back. It was brutal work. Every breath hurt. Every movement fought against cold that wanted to lock their muscles solid. The wind tried to steal their body heat, their strength, their will to continue. But they kept working. Hours passed. The pile of cut wood grew slowly. Then, as Rowan finished cutting through a thick trunk, he heard Eliza scream. He spun around. The pack mule, turned loose to forage during the day, had wandered too close to the edge of the ridge. Its hoof had punched through a hidden snowdrift, and now it was sliding, scrambling, hooves scrabbling for purchase on ice. It was going over. Rowan started running, but Eliza was closer. She dropped the log she was carrying and threw herself forward, grabbing the mule's harness with both hands. The animal's weight yanked her forward. She went to her knees, sliding, the edge of the cliff just feet away. Rowan dove, catching her around the waist. For a terrible moment, all three of them teetered on the edge. Human, animal, suspended over a drop that would kill anything that fell. Then Rowan's boot found solid rock. He hauled backward with everything he had. Eliza held on, refusing to let go even as the harness cut into her hands. The mule kicked, found purchase, scrambled forward. They all went down in a heap 10 feet from the edge. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Rowan pushed himself up, breathing hard. Eliza was on her back in the snow, staring at the sky, her chest heaving. "You okay?" Rowan asked. "I think so." "That was stupid." She turned her head to look at him. "That mule's worth more than I am." "No," Rowan said. "It's not." She blinked. He stood up, offered his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet. "Come on, let's get this wood back before we all freeze to death." That night, warming themselves by the fire, Eliza finally broke. The adrenaline faded, and she started shaking. Not from cold, but from the delayed shock of how close she'd come to dying. Rowan watched her fight it, watched her try to hold herself together. "It's all right," he said quietly. "Let it out." "I'm fine." "You're not. And that's okay." She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. "I thought I was going to fall. I felt the edge giving way, and I thought, but you didn't fall." "I could have." "But you didn't." He moved closer, his voice steady. "You held on. You saved the mule. You did good." "I was terrified." "That's what makes it brave." She looked at him, eyes wet. "You really believe that?" "I do." Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition, respect, maybe the beginning of trust. Eliza wiped her eyes and straightened. "Tomorrow," she said, "we should check the traps and inventory the food stores, make sure we're rationing properly." Back to business. Back to survival. Rowan nodded. "Tomorrow." But as he settled in for the night, he found himself thinking about the woman across the room. She'd been here 2 months. She'd survived altitude, exhaustion, brutal work, and nearly falling off a cliff. The town had given her a week. They'd been wrong, dead wrong. And Rowan was starting to realize something that should have terrified him, but somehow didn't. He didn't want her to leave when spring came. He wanted her to stay. January turned the mountain into a prison of ice and silence. The snow kept coming, 3 feet, then 4, then so much that Rowan had to dig a tunnel just to reach the woodpile. The world outside the cabin became a white void where everything looked the same, where you could walk 10 feet and lose all sense of direction. They were completely cut off now. No way down, no way out, just the two of them and the slow passage of frozen days. Eliza stopped asking when spring would come, stopped watching the calendar Rowan kept scratched into the wall beside the fireplace. She just worked, ate, slept, and worked again, a rhythm as relentless as the wind that never quite stopped howling. But something was changing between them. Small things, subtle shifts, the way Rowan started showing her things without being asked. How to read animal tracks in the snow, how to predict storms by the way the smoke moved from the chimney, how to sharpen a knife properly so the edge lasted. The way Eliza stopped flinching when he moved suddenly, stopped positioning herself to watch the door every second, started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. The way they developed a shorthand in their daily work, Rowan would reach for something and Eliza would already be handing it to him. She'd start a task and he'd finish it without discussion. Small efficiencies that only came from paying attention to each other. They didn't talk about it, but it was there. One night in mid-January, Rowan was repairing a snowshoe by the fire when Eliza spoke from
This
her bunk.
story was posted on the
Can I
channel
ask you
West
something?
of Betrayal.
He glanced
Please
up.
do not repost it
Sure.
in any form.
Why did you come up here? To the mountain. His hand stilled on the leather he was working. That's a long story. We've got nothing but time. True enough. Rowan set down the snowshoe and leaned back against the wall, studying the fire. I had a brother, he said finally. Younger, Jacob. We worked timber together down in the valley. Good money, steady work. Then one winter, the company pushed too hard, wanted us cutting in weather that wasn't safe. Jacob argued with the foreman, said we should wait until the storm passed. He paused, jaw tight. Foreman didn't care. Threatened to fire anyone who refused to work. So Jacob went out. Whole crew did. And a widowmaker came down. Huge branch, 40 feet long, heavy as hell. Caught Jacob across the chest. Eliza drew in a breath. He lived for 3 days, coughing blood, ribs all smashed up. Nothing anyone could do except wait. Rowan's voice went flat. The company sent a man to the funeral, handed my mother $12 and said that settled their obligation, $12 for her son. That's evil, yeah. He picked up the snowshoe again, working the leather harder than necessary, so I walked away. Couldn't stomach working for people who valued profit over human life. Came up here where the only person who could get me killed was me. Do you regret it? He considered that. Some days. It's lonely as hell up here. And there are things I miss. Music, decent food, conversations that aren't just about survival. But at least I can sleep at night. Can't put a price on that. Eliza was quiet for a moment. I understand that, she said. The needing to sleep at night. Your husband never let you? Not without fear. Her voice was soft. He'd come home at unpredictable hours. Wake me up demanding things. Food, attention, other things. And if I wasn't immediately available, if I'd locked the bedroom door or wasn't waiting in the right room, she trailed off. Rowan's hands tightened on the leather. How long were you married? 4 years, married at 19 to a man I'd met twice. My father arranged it, thought he was doing right by me, marrying me to someone successful, and Marcus was charming at first, attentive. Then we said our vows, and it was like a mask came off. No one helped you? Who would I tell? My father died 6 months after the wedding. My mother was dependent on Marcus's financial support, and everyone else just saw a successful merchant with a respectable wife. If I'd complained, they would have said I was ungrateful, hysterical. All the things they say about women who don't appreciate their good fortune. She said it without bitterness, just stating facts. So you started planning, Rowan said. It took 2 years. Gathering money slowly, a little here, a little there, small enough he wouldn't notice. Finding the journal in his office. Making copies of the most damaging pages and hiding them. Researching places I could disappear to. And then one night he came home drunk and violent, and I knew if I didn't leave then, I never would. So you just walked out. I paid a maid to spread rumors I'd gone to visit my cousin up north. Took a coach east instead. Used a fake name, changed my appearance. Bought papers from a forger that said Eliza Thornhill had died in a boarding house fire. Then I became Eliza Vance and kept moving. Until you answered my ad. Until I answered your ad. She shifted in her bunk, and he heard the faint smile in her voice. Which I'm sure you regret. I don't, actually. The words surprised them both. Eliza sat up, looking at him across the firelight. You don't? Rowan met her eyes. You've held up better than I expected. Better than some men I've known. That's not saying much. I've seen how hard this is for you sometimes. Hard for everyone, that's the point. He went back to working the leather. But you haven't quit. That counts for something. Where else would I go? Exactly. You're committed. Makes you reliable. It wasn't a declaration of affection. Wasn't even particularly warm. But coming from Rowan, it might as well have been poetry. Eliza lay back down, pulling the blankets up to her chin. Thank you, she said quietly, for not sending me back. Thank you for saving the mule. That got a small laugh out of her. and for the first time since she'd arrived, the silence between them felt comfortable. The next morning brought fresh problems. Rowan went to check the food stores and discovered mice had gotten into one of the grain sacks, chewed through the cloth, and scattered flour everywhere. Damn it! He surveyed the damage, calculating how much they'd lost. Too much. They were already rationing carefully, and this just made things tighter. Eliza appeared behind him. How bad? Weeks worth, maybe more. Can we hunt to make up the difference? In this weather? Maybe, if we get lucky. He pulled out the damaged sack, brushing away mouse droppings. We'll need to set more traps and move the grain to sealed containers. I'll handle the containers if you handle the traps. He nodded, and they split up to work. An hour later, while Rowan was checking trap lines near the ridge, he heard something that made him freeze. Voices, distant, carried on the wind, but definitely voices. He dropped into a crouch, every sense sharpening. Nobody should be up here. Not in winter. Not in weather like this, unless they were looking for something, or someone. He moved carefully back toward the cabin, staying low, using the trees for cover. The voices got clearer as he approached. 2 men, maybe 3, coming from the south trail. They were still a ways off, but they were definitely heading toward his cabin. Rowan slipped inside and found Eliza organizing the grain containers. We've got company, he said quietly. Her head snapped up, fear flooding her eyes. How many? At least 2, coming up the south trail. It's them. Her voice shook. It has to be. Nobody else would come up here in winter. We don't know that yet. Who else would it be? Fair point. Rowan moved to the window, scanning the tree line. Could be trappers, could be lost miners, could be... Please don't. Eliza stood, gripping the table. Don't tell me it's probably nothing, not when we both know better. He looked at her, saw the terror she was fighting to control. Get the rifle, he said, and the revolver from the lockbox. Load them both. What are you going to do? Go meet them, see what they want. Rowan, if it's trouble, better they meet me first. Gives you time to decide what to do. What do you mean, decide? He turned to face her fully. There's a root cellar under the back corner, hidden door under the rug. If things go bad, you get down there and you don't come out until you're sure they're gone. Understand? I'm not hiding while you... Yes, you are. Because if they're here for you and they get through me, you being armed and ready is our only backup plan. His voice was hard. This isn't about bravery. It's about survival. So do what I'm telling you. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Be careful. Always am. He grabbed his own rifle and stepped outside into the cold. The voices were closer now. He could hear boots crunching in snow, the occasional curse as someone slipped on ice. Rowan positioned himself in the clearing, rifle held casually but ready, and waited. 2 men emerged from the trees. Both were bundled in heavy coats, faces wrapped against the cold. One was tall and lean, moving with the easy confidence of someone used to rough country. The other was shorter, stockier, with a pronounced limp. They stopped when they saw Rowan. Morning, the tall one called out. His voice was friendly, but his hand stayed near his belt. Morning, Rowan replied. You boys lost? Not exactly. Looking for someone, actually. Who? Man named Rowan Hale. Lives up here somewhere. You found him. The tall man smiled. Good. Saves us some trouble. Name's Cooper. This is my associate, Miller. We're working for a gentleman down in the territories. He's looking for his wife. Is that right? Yes, sir. Woman named Eliza. Went missing about 6 months back. We've been tracking her movement, coaches, hotels, that sort of thing. Trail led us to a town called Iron Ridge, and some folks there said you might have brought a woman up here back in autumn. Rowan's face stayed neutral. I did. Mail order wife. Legal arrangement. I'm sure it was, but see, the thing is, we've got reason to believe the woman you brought up might be the same woman our employer's looking for. And if that's the case, well, he'd pay handsomely to get her back. We're talking serious money, Mr. Hale, enough to set you up real comfortable. What makes you think my wife is your missing woman? Description matches. Age, appearance, timing. And our employer mentioned she might have been using the name Vance. Cooper's smile widened. That ring any bells? Rowan considered his options. He could lie. Say Eliza had died or left or never existed. But these men hadn't come all the way up here on a hunch. They had information, and lies would just make them suspicious. Even if she is this woman you're
This
looking
story
for,
was posted on
Rowan
the
said
channel
slowly.
west of
She's
Betrayal.
my wife now.
Please do not
Legal
repost
marriage,
it in any
properly
form.
registered. That means she's not going anywhere unless she chooses to. Oh, we're not suggesting force, Mr. Hale. Just a conversation. Let us talk to her. Let her know her husband's worried sick, wants her home safe. If she wants to stay here, that's her choice. But doesn't she deserve to hear him out? She's not interested. You asked her? Didn't have to. Cooper's smile faded. See, now that concerns me. Makes me wonder if you're keeping her here against her will. Maybe you saw a vulnerable woman and took advantage. Maybe she'd leave if she thought she could. She can leave any time she wants. Then let us talk to her. What's the harm? The harm was that these men were lying through their teeth, and Rowan knew it. No husband sent hired men into the mountains in the middle of winter just to have a conversation. You did that when you wanted something back and didn't care how you got it. I'll give her your message, Rowan said. If she wants to talk to you, she can come out. If not, you boys can head back down. That's not really going to work for us. Then we've got a problem. The shorter man, Miller, shifted, and Rowan caught the glint of metal under his coat. They were armed. Of course they were. Look, Cooper said, voice hardening, we've come a long way. Climbed a mountain in the middle of winter. Lost one of our guys to a fall 3 days back. So we're not leaving without at least seeing the woman. You can make this easy, or you can make it hard. Your choice. Rowan's grip tightened on his rifle. Easy or hard, he said quietly. You're not getting past me. The two men exchanged glances. Then Cooper sighed. Shame. We were hoping to keep this civilized. His hand moved toward his belt. Rowan's rifle came up faster. Don't. Cooper froze. For a long moment, nobody moved. 3 men in the snow, weapons half drawn, measuring each other. Then a voice cut through the tension. Stop! All 3 turned. Eliza stood in the cabin doorway, rifle in her hands. Eliza, Rowan started. It's fine. She walked forward, movement steady despite the fear Rowan could see in her eyes. I know why they're here. Cooper's expression shifted to something uglier. Mrs. Thornhill, your husband's been very worried. I'm sure he has. Her voice was ice. Missing property tends to be concerning. Now that's not fair. The man loves you. The man owns me. There's a difference. She stopped beside Rowan, rifle still raised. And whatever he's paying you, it's not enough. I know what Marcus does to people who fail him. Miller spoke for the first time, his voice rough. He's paying enough, and he wants you back so you can come peaceful, or we can make it difficult. I'm not going anywhere. Not your choice anymore. Actually, Rowan said, it is. She's my wife. You want to take her? You go through the law. File a claim, prove your case. But you don't get to just drag her off my property. Cooper laughed. Your property? Friend, we're in the middle of nowhere. There is no law up here. Just who's stronger. Exactly. Rowan's voice dropped. And I know this mountain. Every trail, every cliff, every place a body could disappear and not be found until spring. You really want to test who's stronger on my ground? The threat hung in the cold air. Miller's hand moved toward his gun. Don't, Eliza said. Her rifle swung toward him. I know how to use this now, and I will. She's bluffing, Cooper said. Try me. Something in her voice made both men hesitate. This wasn't the soft city woman they'd expected. This was someone who'd survived months on a mountain that killed experienced men. Someone who'd already decided she'd rather die than go back. Cooper recalculated. $20,000, he said. That's what Thornhill's offering. We split it 3 ways. You, me, Miller. All you have to do is walk away. Let us take her. And you're a rich man. Not interested. 30,000. And we forget you ever had anything to do with this. Still no. 50. Rowan didn't even blink. She stays. Cooper's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. Probably. But it's my mistake to make. The 2 hired men stood there, weighing their options. They were armed, experienced, probably dangerous, but they were also tired from the climb, unfamiliar with the terrain, and facing two people who had home advantage and nothing left to lose. Finally, Cooper stepped back. "We'll be going then, but this isn't over." "Thornhill's not the type to give up." "Tell him she's dead," Rowan said. "Tell him the climb was too much and she died of exposure. Give him closure, take whatever money he's already paid you, and move on with your lives." "He'll want proof." "Then get creative. But if you come back up this mountain looking for her, I promise you won't make it down again." It wasn't a bluff. Cooper must have seen that because he nodded slowly. "We'll relay your message, but don't say we didn't warn you." The two men turned and started back toward the trail. Rowan and Eliza stood in the snow, watching them disappear into the trees. Neither lowered their weapons until the voices faded completely. Then Eliza's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the snow, rifle falling from her hands, her whole body shaking. Rowan knelt beside her. "You all right?" When I heard voices, I thought it was over." "Not over, not even close." He helped her stand. "They're going to tell Thornhill you're alive, which means more will come, probably in spring when the trail's passable." "I know. We need to be ready." "I know." He studied her face. "You sure you want to stay? Because we could run, pack up, head west, lose ourselves in different territory." "I'm tired of running." "Then we dig in. Make this place defensible. Stock weapons, supplies, set up early warning systems." His voice was grim. "Turn this cabin into a fortress." "You do that? Risk everything for someone you barely know?" "I know you well enough." He picked up her rifle and handed it back to her. "And I meant what I said. You're my wife. That means something." Eliza looked at him, really looked, and something shifted in her expression. "Thank you," she said softly. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a lot of work to do." They went back inside and Rowan started making plans. The rest of January and all of February passed in a blur of preparation. Rowan taught Eliza everything he knew about combat and defense. Not just shooting, though they practiced that daily until her aim was reliably accurate at 50 yards, but hand-to-hand fighting, knife work, how to use the environment as a weapon. He showed her pressure points, weak spots in the human body, ways a smaller person could take down someone bigger. She learned fast, faster than he expected. Turned out all those months of heavy work had built real strength in her arms and core, and her body weight, which she'd always seen as a liability, actually gave her advantages in close combat. Lower center of gravity, more mass behind her strikes, harder to knock off balance. "Stop thinking of it as something wrong with you," Rowan said one day after she'd successfully thrown him during a grappling practice. "It's just how you're built. Use it." She sat there in the snow, breathing hard, looking at him with something like revelation. "I've spent my whole life being told I was too big, too heavy, that I needed to fix myself." "Too big for what? Someone else's idea of perfect?" He stood up, brushing off snow. "Up here, survival isn't about looking a certain way. It's about being functional. And you're functional as hell." Something in her face changed, softened. "You really believe that?" "I don't say things I don't believe." She smiled, genuine, warm, the kind of smile that transformed her whole face. Rowan felt something catch in his chest. "Dangerous," a voice in his head warned. "You're getting attached." Too late, he realized. Way too late. They also fortified the cabin. Rowan cut firing slits in the walls, narrow openings that allowed them to shoot out but made it hard for attackers to shoot in. He reinforced the door with extra planking and heavy crossbars, built shutters for the windows that could be barred from inside. He set up a bell system on the trails. Thin wires strung at ankle height, connected to bells hung inside the cabin. Anyone approaching would trigger them before getting close. And he cached supplies in multiple locations around the property. Weapons, ammunition, food, medical supplies. If they had to abandon the cabin, they'd have fallback positions. Eliza helped with all of it, learning the defensive layout, practicing movement between positions, memorizing sight lines and firing angles. "You're turning me into a soldier," she said one evening. "I'm turning you into someone who survives." "Is there a difference?" "Soldiers follow orders. Survivors make their own decisions." He checked the action on one of the rifles. When trouble comes, and it will come, you're going to have to make choices. Hard ones. I can teach you skills, but I can't tell you when to run and when to fight. That's on you. What would you do? Me?
This
I'd
story
fight,
was posted on
But
the
I'm
channel
stubborn
West
and
of
probably
Betrayal.
stupid.
Please do not
He set the
repost
rifle
it in any
aside.
form.
You've got something to live for besides pride. That journal, the evidence you took, that could actually stop Thornhill. So if it comes down to dying here or running with that information, you run. You hear me? I'm not leaving you. Eliza, I'm not. Her voice was firm. I've run before. I know how it feels, and I'm done with it. If they come, we face them together. Rowan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was being foolish, that survival mattered more than loyalty. But the look in her eyes stopped him. She'd made her choice, and he'd respect it. Together then, he said. She nodded. And Rowan realized he'd somehow gone from wanting to send her away at first opportunity to being willing to die defending her. Probably stupid, that voice said again. Definitely stupid, he agreed, but he wasn't changing his mind. March came with false promises of spring. The snow started melting during the day, turning everything into slush and mud. But it still froze hard at night, creating treacherous ice. The trail down was almost passable, which meant trouble could come up. Rowan started sleeping lighter, one ear always tuned for the warning bells. Eliza did the same, both of them caught in a strange state of waiting for violence they knew was coming, but couldn't predict. The tension wore on them. Small arguments flared up, disagreements about supplies, about security protocols, about nothing at all, really. Just pressure, finding release. One night, after a particularly sharp exchange about whether they needed to set traps along the north approach, Eliza threw down the rope she was working with. This is insane. We're living like we're under siege. We are under siege. They're just waiting for better weather. Maybe they're not coming. Maybe Cooper convinced Thornhill I'm dead. You believe that? No. She slumped against the wall. But I'm tired. Tired of waiting, tired of being afraid, tired of every sound making me jump. Rowan sat down beside her. I know. Do you? Because you seem fine, calm, like this is just another day. I'm good at hiding it. He was quiet for a moment. After Jacob died, I spent a year jumping at every sound, seeing him in every shadow, waiting for something else terrible to happen. And eventually I realized the waiting was worse than whatever I was waiting for. So I learned to live with it, accept it as background noise. How? Focused on things I could control, built this cabin, learned the mountain, made a life that was mine, not dependent on anyone else's decisions. He looked at her. You're doing the same thing. Learning to fight, learning the terrain, taking control. It just takes time. We might not have time. Then we make the most of what we've got. She turned to look at him, and he realized how close they were sitting, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough to feel the warmth of her breath in the cold air. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Eliza leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't tentative or uncertain. It was deliberate, fierce, a declaration. Rowan froze for half a second, then kissed her back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliza's eyes were wide. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. But we agreed. Practical arrangement. No complications. Seems like we already passed complicated. He touched her face gently. I'm not Jacob, and you're not Marcus. We get to decide what this is. What do you want it to be? Honest question, deserved an honest answer. Real, Rowan said. I want it to be real. She kissed him again, softer this time. And when she pulled back, she was smiling. Real sounds good. They didn't talk about it after that, didn't make grand declarations or plan a future they might not have. They just shifted, small changes. Eliza moved her bedding closer to his. They started touching more, hands brushing while working, shoulders pressed together by the fire. Started sharing the small intimacies that came with actually trusting someone. It felt natural. Right. And terrifying because now Rowan had even more to lose, but he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Mid-March brought the first warm day. Actual warmth, sun breaking through clouds, snow melting fast. Rowan decided to ride down to town. Check for news, see if anyone had been asking questions, maybe learn what Thornhill's men had reported. I don't like this, Eliza said, watching him saddle the mule. I'll be fine. Down and back before dark. What if they're waiting? Then I'll see them before they see me. He checked his rifle. But I need to know what we're dealing with. Information's the only advantage we've got. She didn't argue further, just kissed him hard and told him to be careful. The ride down was tense. Every shadow could hide an ambush. Every sound could be footsteps. But Rowan made it to Iron Ridge without incident. The town was busier than he'd seen it in months. Early miners arriving, trappers coming out of the high country, traders restocking before heading further west. He went straight to the trading post, where a grizzled man named Callahan ran both the store and the town's informal information network. "Hail!" Callahan nodded, greeting. "Heard you got yourself a wife. News travels. Always does. Also heard some men came through looking for her. Couple weeks back." Rowan's attention sharpened. "What'd they say?" "Asked around. Wanted to know if anyone had seen a woman matching her description. I told them she'd been here but moved on. Figured that was safest." "They believe you?" "Hard to say. They left heading south, but—" Callahan lowered his voice. "Word is they're coming back with reinforcements. Waiting for the pass to fully clear, then they're mounting a proper expedition." "How many?" "Don't know for sure, but more than 2. Rowan's jaw tightened. "When?" "Week. Maybe 2. Not enough time. Not nearly enough." "Thanks for the warning." "Hail." Callahan's expression was serious. "Whatever trouble that woman's in, is it worth dying over?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Callahan studied him, then nodded. "Then you better get ready, because trouble's coming and it's bringing friends." Rowan bought ammunition, medical supplies, and some extra food. Then he headed back up the mountain, pushing the mule faster than was safe. He needed to tell Eliza. They were out of time. Eliza was waiting in the clearing when Rowan crested the final ridge. She had the rifle slung across her back, and relief flooded her face when she saw him. "You're late," she said. "I was about to come looking." Got held up talking to Callahan. He dismounted, started unloading supplies. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted. "How bad?" "Bad. They're coming back. Bigger group this time. Week or 2 at most." She went very still. "How many?" He didn't know, but enough that they feel confident about taking us. Eliza turned away, staring out at the valley below. The sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of orange and red, beautiful and completely indifferent to their problems. "We could still run," Rowan said quietly. "Right now. Take what we can carry and disappear west. They'd never find us." "You don't want to run." "No, but I'd do it. For you." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "I spent 4 years being afraid. 4 years letting Marcus control every aspect of my life. And when I finally escaped, I swore I'd never live like that again. Never let fear make my decisions. This isn't about fear. It's about staying alive. It's about both." She turned to face him. "If we run now, we'll always be running. There'll always be another threat, another reason to keep moving. And I'm done with that. I want a life, Rowan, a real one. And I can't have that until Marcus is stopped. The journal isn't enough by itself. I need to be alive to testify, to give the authorities someone to question, someone who can fill in the details. Dead, that evidence is just paper." Rowan understood what she was saying, understood it and hated it. "So we make our stand here. We make our stand here." He moved closer, took her hands. They were rough now, calloused from months of work. Strong hands. "Then we better make sure we win." She squeezed his fingers. "What do we need to do?" "Everything we've been planning, but faster." They worked through the night and into the next day, turning the cabin into something resembling a fortress. Rowan reinforced the firing slits, added a second layer of barricading to the door, built covered positions outside where they could fall back if the cabin became untenable. Eliza organized their ammunition, creating caches at each defensive position. She also prepared medical supplies, knowing wounds were likely, and she wrote down everything she knew about Marcus Thornhill's operation: names, dates, transactions, and sealed it in a waterproof pouch that she hid in the stone cache up the ridge. "If I don't make it," she told Rowan, "that information gets sent to the territorial marshal. Promise me." "You're going to make it. Promise me anyway." "I promise." They both knew the odds weren't good. Even with preparation, even with the advantage of familiar terrain, they were two against an unknown number
This
of
story
armed
was
men who
posted
were
on the
being
channel
paid well
west
enough
of
to risk a
Betrayal.
mountain assault.
Please do not
But
repost
neither
it
of them
in any
said it out
form.
loud. The days that followed were strange, waiting for violence while trying to maintain some semblance of normal life. They still cooked meals together, still talked by the fire, still held each other at night. But underneath everything was a current of tension that never quite went away. Rowan caught himself memorizing small details about Eliza. The way she tucked hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the slight frown of concentration when she aimed the rifle, the warmth in her eyes when she looked at him. He was storing them up, just in case. 1 week passed, then 10 days. On the 11th day, the warning bells rang. It was mid-afternoon, sun high and bright. Rowan was outside checking the perimeter when he heard the first faint jingle. He froze, listened. Another bell. North trail. Then a third. East approach. Multiple directions. Coordinated. "Eliza!" he shouted, already running for the cabin. "They're here!" She appeared in the doorway, rifle in hand, face pale but determined. "How many trails?" "At least 2, maybe 3. He grabbed his own rifle, checked the load. "They're trying to surround us." "What do we do?" "Get inside, bar the door. Don't shoot unless you have a clear target." His mind was racing, running through scenarios. "And if they breach?" "I know. Root cellar." "No." He grabbed her arm. "If they breach, you run. North side has the least coverage. You might make it to the trees." "I'm not leaving you. Eliza—" "No." Her voice was iron. "We do this together or not at all." There wasn't time to argue. The first man emerged from the tree line to the south, then another, then 3 more. Rowan counted quickly. 7 visible. Could be more in the trees. Bad odds. Really bad. "Inside," he said. "Now." They barricaded themselves in the cabin, taking positions at opposite firing slits. Rowan watched the men spread out, professional and careful. These weren't the same 2 from before. These were experienced, probably ex-military or professional enforcers. Thornhill had spent real money on this. One of the men stepped forward, hands raised to show he was unarmed. "Rowan Hale," he called out. "My name is Vincent Shaw. I'm here on behalf of Marcus Thornhill. We don't want any trouble. Just give us the woman and we'll leave peacefully." "She's not going anywhere," Rowan shouted back. "Mr. Hale, please be reasonable. We have you surrounded. There's no way out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "You're on my property. You're the ones making it hard." Shaw sighed, like this was all very tedious. "We're prepared to offer you $50,000. Cash. All you have to do is walk away. Leave the woman, take the money, and this all ends." "Not interested." $75,000. Final offer. Still no. "Then I'm afraid you're choosing the difficult path." Shaw stepped back and his tone hardened. "You've got 1 hour to reconsider. After that, we come in, and we won't be gentle." The men retreated to the tree line, establishing positions. Rowan turned to find Eliza staring at him. $75,000, she said quietly. That's a fortune." "I know. You could have a new life, leave the mountain, live somewhere comfortable." "I like the mountain." "Rowan, you're worth more than money, Eliza, a lot more." He moved to her, cupped her face. "And I'm not letting them take you, not for any amount." She kissed him hard. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. "I love you," she said. "I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you." His throat tightened. "I love you too." They held each other for a moment, knowing it might be the last time. Then they got back to their positions and waited. The hour passed slowly. Rowan used the time to study the attackers' positions, looking for weaknesses. There were 6 men visible now. The 7th must be circling around or held in reserve. Professional setup, overlapping fields of fire. No obvious gaps. This was going to get ugly. When the hour was up, Shaw called out one more time. "Last chance, Hale." "Go to hell." So be it. Shaw made a signal, and all hell broke loose. The first volley of gunfire shattered the afternoon quiet. Bullets punched through the cabin walls, splintering wood, ricocheting off stone. Rowan ducked instinctively, then returned fire through his slit. One of the attackers dropped. 6 left. Beside him, Eliza fired. Missed. Fired again. This time a man cried out and stumbled back into cover. Good, Rowan said. Keep them pinned. The exchange of gunfire went on for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Both sides shooting, reloading, shooting again. The cabin filled with smoke from gunpowder and wood dust. Then Rowan heard something that made his blood run cold. Footsteps on the roof. He looked up just as an axe blade punched through the wood, sending splinters raining down. "They're coming through the top!" he shouted. Eliza swung her rifle up, fired through the ceiling. The axe blade withdrew, followed by a scream and the heavy thud of a body rolling off the roof. 5 left. But now the attackers knew they could breach from above. 2 of them started climbing while the others provided covering fire. Rowan made a split-second decision. We can't hold this position. We need to fall back. To where? The outcropping. Better defensive position and they can't get above us. They'll burn the cabin. Let them. We stay here. We die here. Eliza hesitated only a second, then nodded. Rowan grabbed their supply packs, already prepared for this exact scenario, and threw one to Eliza. On 3, we go out the back window. Run for the rocks. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? Understood. 1, 2, 3. They burst through the back shutter in a spray of broken wood. Rowan fired twice to scatter the men on that side. Then they were running, boots pounding through melting snow, bullets kicking up dirt around them. Eliza stumbled once but caught herself, kept running. They made it to the rock outcropping and scrambled up into a natural fortress of stone. From here, they had elevation, cover, and clear sight lines in 3 directions. Much better. Below them, the attackers regrouped. Rowan counted 4 visible now, 1 dead on the roof, 1 wounded earlier, 1 he dropped in the first volley. But that meant at least 1 was unaccounted for. Shaw stepped into view, using a tree for cover. "You're just making this take longer, Hale. I can do this all day." "Can you?" Shaw gestured, and one of his men produced a torch. "Because we're about to burn everything you own." Rowan's jaw clenched as he watched them set fire to the cabin. Flames caught quickly on the dry wood, spreading fast. Within minutes, the structure he'd spent 3 years building was engulfed. Everything he owned, everything he'd worked for, gone. Eliza's hand found his. "I'm sorry. Not your fault." "It is. They're here because of me." "They're here because of him." Rowan's voice was hard. "And we're going to make sure they regret it." The fire drew the attackers' attention, which gave Rowan an opportunity. He sighted carefully and dropped another man who'd gotten too confident. 3 left. Maybe 2 if the wounded one from earlier was out of the fight. Better odds. Still not good, but better. Then he heard rocks shifting behind them. He spun just as the 7th man, the one he'd lost track of, came over the top of the outcropping, knife in hand. The man lunged. Rowan barely got his rifle up in time to block the blade. They grappled, rolling across stone, both fighting for position. The knife came down toward Rowan's throat. He caught the man's wrist, muscles straining, but his opponent was younger, heavier, leveraging his weight. The blade inched closer. Then a gunshot cracked, deafening at close range. The man jerked, eyes going wide. Blood bloomed across his chest. He toppled sideways. Eliza stood 3 feet away, revolver smoking in her hand, face white but steady. She'd just killed a man. Her first. "You okay?" Rowan gasped, pushing the body off him. She nodded, but her hands were shaking. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." She pointed down the slope. "They're coming." Shaw and 2 others were advancing up the rocks, using cover, moving fast. Rowan grabbed his rifle, but before he could aim, pain exploded in his thigh. He went down hard, blood spreading across his pants leg. He'd been shot. Didn't even hear it over the noise. "Rowan!" Eliza dropped beside him. "I'm fine. Just a graze." It wasn't. The bullet had gone clean through and he was bleeding heavy, but they didn't have time for panic. "You need to hold them off. You need a tourniquet." Later. Right now you shoot anyone who comes over that ridge. Can you do that? She looked at him, looked at the rifle, looked down at Shaw's advancing men. Then something changed in her face. The fear burned away, leaving something harder. I can do that. She took position at the edge, rifle braced against stone, and started firing. Her first shot missed.
This story
Second
was
clipped the rock
posted on
near
the
Shaw's
channel
head,
west of
making him
Betrayal.
duck.
Please do not
Third caught
repost
one of his
it
men
in
in the
any
shoulder.
form.
The advance faltered. Rowan used his belt to tie off his leg, gritting his teeth against the pain. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. He was going to need real medical attention soon or he'd pass out from blood loss. But first they had to survive. Shaw and his remaining man had found good cover and were pinning them down with sustained fire. Bullets sparked off the rocks around them. Eliza kept firing back, but she was running low on ammunition. They were stuck. Couldn't advance, couldn't retreat, slowly running out of options. Then Rowan had an idea. Stupid, dangerous, probably suicidal, but it might work. Eliza, he said, I need you to trust me. She glanced back. What are you thinking? See that ledge above them? He pointed to an overhang about 30 feet upslope. If I can get up there, I can trigger a slide. Bury them. You can barely walk. I can climb. Rowan, it's our only play. We stay here, we die slow. This gives us a chance. She stared at him, clearly wanting to argue. Then she looked at his leg, at their dwindling ammunition, at the men below who wouldn't stop until they'd won. How long do you need? 5 minutes, maybe less. Then I'll buy you 5 minutes. She turned back to her position. Go. Rowan started climbing. Every movement was agony. His legs screamed protest, blood soaking through the makeshift tourniquet. But he kept going, using his arms to pull himself up when his leg wouldn't hold weight. Below, Eliza kept up steady fire. Not trying to hit anything, just keeping Shaw's attention down the slope instead of up. Rowan made it to the ledge, breathing hard, vision swimming. The rock here was loose, barely held in place by frozen soil. Perfect. He wedged his rifle into a crack and started prying. One stone came loose, then another, then a whole section shifted. Eliza, he shouted, get down! She threw herself flat. Rowan gave one final push and the ledge gave way. Tons of rock and snow came down in a roaring avalanche, sweeping down the slope directly toward Shaw's position. Shaw saw it coming, tried to run, didn't make it. The slide caught him and his last man, burying them under rock and debris. Then silence. Rowan lay on the ledge, breathing hard, everything hurting. They'd won. Somehow, impossibly, they'd won. Eliza appeared beside him, face streaked with dirt and tears. You're insane, she said. Worked, though. You're also bleeding everywhere. Yeah, that's a problem. His vision was going gray at the edges, shock setting in. Eliza got her arms under him. Come on, we need to get you down and stop this bleeding. The cabin's gone. I know. We'll figure something out. She half carried, half dragged him down to flatter ground, found a spot sheltered from wind and got him lying flat. Then she cut away his pant leg and really saw the wound. Her face went pale. This is bad. I noticed. The bullet went through, but it hit something. Maybe the artery. You're losing too much blood. So fix it. I'm not a doctor, Rowan. You're what I've got. She stared at him for a moment. Then her jaw set and she got to work. She cleaned the wound with snow, agonizing, then packed it with cloth torn from her own shirt, applied pressure until the bleeding slowed to a seep, bound it tight with strips of leather from their supply pack. It wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't professional, but it might keep him alive. We need to get you warm, she said. The cabin's still burning, but maybe there's something we can salvage. Don't. Too dangerous. Fire could collapse any minute. Then what? The cache. Up the ridge. There's blankets, supplies, everything we need. He grabbed her hand. You'll have to go alone. I can't make the climb. I'm not leaving you. You have to, just for an hour. Get the supplies, come back. We'll make camp here until I can travel. She looked torn, scared. Eliza, I trust you. You can do this. Finally, she nodded. 1 hour. If I'm not back, you will be. She kissed him, hard and desperate. Then she was gone, moving up the ridge toward the hidden cache. Rowan lay there, staring at the sky, trying to stay conscious. Everything hurt. His leg throbbed with each heartbeat. His head felt light, disconnected. But they'd survived. Against 7 armed men, against impossible odds, they'd survived. He let his eyes close just for a moment. When he opened them again, Eliza was back, arms loaded with supplies. She'd made the climb in 40 minutes. "Told you," he mumbled. "Shut up and let me work." She built a shelter using blankets and broken branches, got a small fire going, changed his bandages with proper cloth and what little medicine they had in the cache. By the time she finished, night had fallen and Rowan's fever was spiking. Infection. Already. Eliza sat beside him, holding his hand, watching his face. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispered. "Not after everything. Not planning on it. Good, because I need you." Her voice broke. "I need you, Rowan." He squeezed her hand weakly. "I'm right here. Stay right here. Please. Okay?" The night was long and brutal. Rowan drifted in and out of consciousness, fever dreams mixing with reality. Sometimes he thought he was back in the valley with Jacob. Sometimes he thought the cabin was still standing. Sometimes he knew exactly where he was and how bad things were. Eliza stayed with him through all of it, changing bandages, forcing water between his lips, keeping him warm, refusing to let him slip away. By morning, the fever broke. Rowan opened his eyes to find pale sunlight filtering through the makeshift shelter, and Eliza asleep beside him, still holding his hand. She looked exhausted, dirt-streaked, blood-stained, with dark circles under her eyes. Beautiful. He managed to sit up, gritting his teeth against the pain. His movement woke her. She jerked upright, eyes wild for a moment before focusing on him. "You're awake." "Seems like." "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot and then triggered a landslide. So, not great." A laugh burst out of her, half relieved, half hysterical. "You're making jokes. That's a good sign." "What's the situation?" Her expression sobered. "The cabin's completely gone. Burned to the foundation. Most of our supplies with it. We've got what was in the cache and that's it." "The bodies?" "Still under the rock slide as far as I can tell. I haven't checked closely." "Don't. Leave them buried." He looked at his leg. The bandage was bloody but not soaked through. "Better than last night." "Can I walk?" "Not far. Not yet." "Then we wait. Give me a few days to heal up, then we figure out next steps." "What next steps?" "Everything's gone." "Not everything." He met her eyes. "We're alive. That's what matters." She was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned in and rested her forehead against his. "I killed someone last night," she said softly. "I know. I keep seeing his face, the way he looked when the bullet hit. That doesn't go away. Not completely." Rowan's voice was gentle. "But you did what you had to do. He would have killed me. Probably both of us." "I know, I never thought I'd be someone who could do that." "You're someone who survives, whatever that takes." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What now?" "Now we rest. Then we rebuild." "Rebuild what? The cabin?" "If we stay, yeah. Or we could go somewhere else, somewhere that doesn't have bodies buried in the yard." He paused. "It's your choice, Eliza. This is your mountain now, too." She looked out at the clearing where the cabin had stood, at the burned timbers and ash, at the ridge beyond, where the cache held evidence that could destroy Marcus Thornhill. "I want to stay," she said finally. "This place, for all the violence, for all the fear, it's the first place I've ever felt free, really free. I don't want to give that up." "Then we stay. And we finish this. Send that journal to the marshal. Make sure Marcus can never hurt anyone again." "When?" "When you can travel, not before." She touched his face. "I need you alive more than I need him dead." Rowan caught her hand, held it. "We'll do both, I promise." They sat there as the sun rose higher, warming the mountain, melting the last of winter's snow. The battle was over, but the war, the real war, the one that would finally free Eliza from her past, was just beginning. For 3 days, Eliza kept Rowan alive through sheer force of will. The wound festered despite her best efforts. Fever came and went in waves, leaving him shaking and delirious. Sometimes he knew where he was. Sometimes he called for Jacob. Sometimes he stared at her without recognition, eyes glassy and distant. She changed his bandages every few hours, cleaning the wound with boiled water and the limited medicine from the cache. She forced him to drink even when he fought her. She kept him warm when chills racked his body and cooled him with snow when the fever
This story
spiked
was
too
posted
high.
on the channel west of
And she
Betrayal.
didn't sleep,
Please do not repost it in any form.
because every time she closed her eyes, she saw him dying. On the fourth day, the fever finally broke for good. Rowan woke with his mind clear, though his body felt like it had been trampled by the mule. Eliza was slumped beside him, finally unconscious from exhaustion, dark circles under her eyes so deep they looked like bruises. He watched her sleep and felt something crack open in his chest. This woman, the one people had written off as too soft, too weak, too unsuited for this life, had just spent 4 days keeping him from dying. Had nursed him through infection and fever in a makeshift shelter with almost no supplies. Had refused to give up even when giving up would have been easier. She'd saved his life. Again. When she woke an hour later, the first thing she did was reach for his forehead, checking for fever. "It's gone," he said quietly. Her hand stilled, then she sagged with relief so profound it looked like pain. "Thank God." "Thank you," Rowan corrected. You did this. I thought I was losing you. The fever kept climbing, and I didn't know what else to do, and..." Her voice broke. "I couldn't lose you, not after everything." He pulled her down beside him, ignoring the protest from his leg, held her while she shook with delayed reaction to 4 days of barely controlled terror. "I'm okay," he murmured. "I'm right here. You better stay here, planning on it." They lay there for a while, just breathing, just being alive. Finally, Eliza pulled back, wiping her eyes. "We need to talk about what happens next." "I know." "You can't stay here. Not like this. You need a real doctor, proper medicine, time to heal somewhere that isn't a pile of blankets on frozen ground. We go to Iron Ridge." "And then what? Just wait for Thornhill to send more men?" "No, then we finish this." Rowan shifted, trying to sit up. Pain lanced through his leg, but he managed it. "We go to the territorial marshal, give them the journal, your testimony, everything, and we make sure Marcus Thornhill never hurts anyone again." Eliza was quiet, studying him. "You're sure? Because once we do this, there's no taking it back. He'll know I'm alive. He'll know where to find me. He already knows that. Shaw told him before he came up here. Had to. Or how else would he have gotten men and money for an assault? So the secret's out. Only question now is whether we use it or run from it." "And you think we should use it? I think you deserve justice, real justice, not just survival." His voice was firm. "And I think that journal is the only way you get it." She reached into her coat and pulled out the small, leather-bound book. She'd been carrying it since the attack, unwilling to leave it, even in the cache. "Everything's in here," she said softly. "Every illegal deal, every bribe, every person he destroyed to build his empire. If this gets into the right hands, it will destroy him. Or get us killed trying. Maybe. But I'd rather die fighting than spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder." Eliza opened the journal, flipping through pages of her own careful handwriting. Dates, names, amounts, a record of corruption so extensive it had taken her 2 years to compile. "I used to think this was my insurance policy," she said. "Something to keep him from coming after me. But insurance only works if the other person knows you have it, and keeping it secret just made me a loose end worth tying up. So we stopped keeping it secret. We burn his whole world down." "Exactly." She closed the journal and met his eyes. "You're
This
sure
story
about
was
this?
posted on the channel
Because it's
west
going to
of
get
Betrayal.
messy.
Please do not
Marcus has
repost
connections,
it in any
lawyers,
form.
officials, people who owe him favors. Even with evidence, he'll fight. And he'll come after both of us. Let him come. We've already survived his worst." Rowan's jaw set. "And this time, we'll be ready." A slow smile spread across Eliza's face. Not warm or gentle. Something sharper, hungrier. "All right then. Let's destroy him." They waited 2 more days before attempting the trip down. Rowan needed every hour to build back enough strength to manage the descent, and even then, it wasn't going to be easy. Eliza fashioned a crude crutch from a broken branch, binding it with leather straps. It wasn't comfortable, but it worked well enough for Rowan to hobble around the campsite. Think you can make it to Iron Ridge? She asked, watching him practice. I've climbed this mountain with worse injuries. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He took a few more steps, testing his weight. The leg held barely. We go slow, we'll be fine. Define slow. 2 days instead of 6 hours. Eliza winced. That's not ideal. No, but it's what we've got. They left at dawn, taking only what they could carry. The cache still held some supplies, and Eliza marked its location carefully. They'd need to come back for the rest once Rowan healed. The descent was brutal. Every step sent pain shooting through Rowan's leg. The crutch helped, but the trail was still treacherous with ice and loose rock, and there were places where he had to put full weight on the injured leg or risk falling. Eliza stayed close, ready to catch him if he stumbled. Twice he did stumble, and both times she was there, bracing him until he found his balance again. They made camp after only 4 hours, both of them exhausted. At this rate, it'll take us 3 days, Eliza said, stirring their meager dinner over a small fire. Then it takes 3 days. Your leg will heal or it won't. Either way, we're going down. He accepted the tin cup she handed him. No point worrying about it. She wanted to argue. He could see it in her face, but she also knew he was right. They were committed now, and the only way out was forward. That night, sleeping under a rocky overhang with the wind howling outside, Eliza curled against Rowan's good side. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of what? Everything. The descent. Facing Marcus. What happens after? She paused. What if the marshal doesn't believe us? What if Marcus has already paid him off? Then we go higher. Federal authorities, newspapers, someone who can't be bought. And if they're all bought? They're not. Evil has limits, Eliza. It's not all powerful. He stroked her hair. And you're not powerless anymore. You've got evidence, allies, and you survived a mountain winter that should have killed you. That counts for something. Does it? Yeah, it does. She was quiet for a moment, then, what happens to us after this is done? What do you want to happen? She hesitated. I want to rebuild the cabin properly this time. I want to plant a garden in the spring, learn to can vegetables and make preserves. I want to spend winters by the fire with you and summers working outside, and I want to stop running, stop being afraid, just live. Rowan's throat tightened. That sounds perfect. You mean it? Every word. Even the garden part? Because I'm going to want a big garden. Carrots, potatoes, maybe even strawberries if they'll grow at altitude. He smiled. Even the garden part. She kissed him, soft and slow. And for a moment, the pain and fear and uncertainty didn't matter. There was just the two of them, holding on to each other, holding on to hope. They reached Iron Ridge late on the 3rd day, Rowan barely standing, Eliza supporting most of his weight. The town looked the same as always, ramshackle and rough, full of people who asked no questions and expected no answers. Callahan saw them coming and hurried out of the trading post. Jesus, Hale, what happened to you? Long story. I need a doctor. We don't have one. Closest is 2 towns over. Then someone who can stitch and bandage, and we need a place to stay. Callahan studied them both. Rowan's blood-stained leg, Eliza's exhausted face, the grim determination in both their expressions. You two look like you fought a war. We did, Eliza said. And we won. Something in her voice made Callahan take a step back. Then he nodded. There's a woman, Martha Hayes, used to be a field nurse before she came west. She can patch you up, and I've got a room upstairs you can use. Not much, but it's warm and dry. That'll work, thank you. Don't thank me yet. There's been talk in town, men asking questions about you. About her. He lowered his voice. Whatever trouble you're in, it's not over. We know, Rowan said. That's why we're here. They got Rowan upstairs and into a bed that felt like heaven after days on the ground. Martha Hayes arrived within the hour, a stern woman in her 50s with capable hands and no-nonsense demeanor. She took one look at Rowan's leg and whistled low. This is infected, badly. You're lucky you can still walk. Can you fix it? I can try, but it's going to hurt and you're going to need to stay off it for at least 2 weeks, maybe more. I don't have 2 weeks. Then you'll lose the leg. Your choice. Rowan looked at Eliza. She nodded. Fix it, he said. What
This
followed
story
the
was
worst
posted
hour
on the
of
channel
Rowan's
west
life.
of betrayal.
Martha cleaned the
Please
wound,
do not
scraping out
repost it
infected
in any
tissue,
form.
burning away dead flesh with a heated knife. He gritted his teeth so hard he thought they'd crack, but he didn't scream. Didn't want to scare Eliza, who sat beside him gripping his hand hard enough to leave marks. Finally, Martha finished stitching and bandaging. That's the best I can do. Keep it clean, keep it elevated, and for the love of everything, stay in bed. You walk on this before it heals properly, you'll open it right back up. Understood. Martha turned to Eliza. You look like death yourself. When's the last time you ate a real meal? I don't remember. I'll have Callahan send up food. You eat it, all of it. Can't take care of him if you collapse. After Martha left, Eliza sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. You okay? Rowan asked. I'm tired. So tired I can barely think straight. She rubbed her face. But we're here. We made it down. That's something. More than something. That's everything. He caught her hand. Now we rest. Then we find the marshal. What if he's not here? Then we wait for him. Or we send a telegram. However it needs to happen. His voice was firm despite the exhaustion dragging at him. This ends, Eliza. One way or another. The food arrived. Actual cooked food, hot and plentiful. Eliza ate mechanically at first, then with growing hunger as her body remembered what it needed. Rowan managed a few bites before exhaustion won, and he fell into deep, dreamless sleep. He woke the next morning to find Eliza gone. Panic hit him first. Then he saw the note on the bedside table. Getting information. Back soon. Don't you dare get out of that bed. He lay back, trying to relax, failing completely. An hour later, Eliza returned with Callahan. The territorial marshal is in town, she said without preamble. 3 buildings down. Been here 2 days investigating some mining claim dispute. Rowan pushed himself upright, ignoring the protest from his leg. Then we talked to him, today. You can barely sit up. Don't need to sit up to talk. Callahan cleared his throat. If you want, I can bring him here. Tell him you've got information about a criminal matter. He'll come. Do it. Callahan left and Eliza moved to Rowan's side. You're sure about this? Once we tell him, there's no going back. I'm sure. Are you? She pulled out the journal, holding it like a weapon. I've been carrying this fear for 4 years. I'm ready to put it down. Then let's put it down. Marshal Thomas Garrett arrived an hour later, a weathered man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a badge that had seen better days. He carried himself like someone who dealt with every kind of trouble the frontier could throw at him and wasn't impressed by any of it. Mr. Hale, ma'am. He tipped his hat to Eliza. I'm told you have information. We do. Rowan gestured to a chair. You might want to sit down. This is going to take a while. Garrett sat, pulling out a small notebook. I'm listening. Eliza took a breath. Then she told him everything. Her marriage to Marcus Thornhill, the abuse, the discovery of his illegal activities, her escape, the journals she'd compiled, the men he'd sent to kill her, the attack on the mountain. She spoke steadily, without emotion, laying out facts like evidence in a court case, which, Rowan realized, it would be. Garrett listened without interrupting, his expression giving nothing away. When Eliza finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. May I see the journal?
This story was posted
Eliza
on the
hesitated
channel
only
west
briefly
of
before
betrayal.
handing it over.
Please do not
Garrett opened it,
repost it
reading
in any
carefully.
form.
His eyebrows rose as he turned pages, and his jaw tightened. Finally, he looked up. If even half of this is true, Marcus Thornhill is one of the most corrupt men I've ever encountered. Smuggling, bribery, extortion, fraud. He shook his head. And you documented all of it. I did. Why? Because I needed proof. I needed something that would make people listen, that would make them believe me when I said what kind of man he was. Her voice hardened. Women like me. We get called liars, hysterics, troublemakers. But evidence? Evidence doesn't lie. No, it doesn't. Garrett closed the journal. I'm going to need to verify this information, cross-reference it with other records, interview witnesses if any are still alive. How long will that take? Rowan interrupted. Months? Maybe longer? Thornhill has connections, money, lawyers. Building a case that will actually stick is going to take time. We don't have months. He'll send more men. Then I'll provide protection. Put you both somewhere safe while— No. Eliza's voice was flat. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not letting him control my life even one more day. Garrett studied her. Mrs. Thornhill, it's Hale now, legally and in every way that matters. Mrs. Hale, then, I understand your frustration, but these things take time. Due process, evidence chains, proper procedure. I've given you everything you need. Names, dates, transactions. Witnesses who were involved. That journal contains enough evidence to hang him 10 times over. What more do you need? Your testimony, in court, under oath. Fine. When? After we build the case. After we ensure it's airtight. And in the meantime, what? We just wait for him to finish what his hired gun started? Garrett's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but if we move too fast, if we make mistakes, he walks. And men like Thornhill, they don't give you a second chance. We get one shot at this. It has to be perfect. Eliza looked at Rowan. He nodded. How long? She asked Garrett. Realistically, 6 months, maybe 8. And during that time, you stay out of sight. Let me do my job. Let the law work. The law hasn't worked for me so far. Then give it a chance to start. There was a long silence. Finally, Eliza nodded. 6 months, but after that, with or without your perfect case, I'm testifying. I'm standing up in court and telling everyone what he did. Understood? Understood. Garrett stood, tucking the journal into his coat. I'll send a telegram today. Get this started. In the meantime, stay here. Don't talk to anyone about this. And if anyone comes asking questions— We know how to handle trouble, Rowan said. I'm sure you do. But try not to kill anyone else if you can help it. Makes the paperwork difficult. After Garrett left, Eliza sat heavily on the bed. 6 months, she said it. Half a year of waiting. Could be worse, could be never. I know, I want this over. I want to stop being afraid. Rowan pulled her close. We will. And in the meantime, we rest. We heal. We get strong again. And then? Then we go back up the mountain and rebuild everything we lost. She looked at him. You still want to go back? After everything? That's our home, Eliza. Our place. Some bastards burned down our cabin, but they didn't take the land, didn't take the mountain, and they sure as hell didn't take us. His voice was firm. So yeah, we go back, we rebuild, and we make it better than before. A smile broke across her face, the first real smile he'd seen in days. Better than before. I like that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. I can think of worse things to be stuck with. They spent the next 2 weeks in Iron Ridge while Rowan healed. Martha Hayes came by daily to check his progress, and slowly, painfully, the wound began to close properly. During that time, word spread through town about what had happened on the mountain. The story got embellished with each telling. 7 men became 10, then 12. The firefight became an epic siege. Rowan's injury became a near-death experience where Eliza performed emergency surgery with a hunting knife. Some of it was true. Most wasn't. But the core message got through. Rowan Hale and his wife had survived something that should have killed them, and they weren't people to mess with. The townsfolk's attitude toward Eliza shifted noticeably. The woman they'd written off as doomed now got nods of respect. People made way for her on the street. When she bought supplies, shopkeepers gave her fair prices without argument. She'd earned her place through blood and survival, and everyone knew it. On the 15th day, Martha declared Rowan fit enough to travel. The leg's healing well. You'll have a scar, and it might ache when weather changes, but you'll walk fine. She fixed him with a stern look. Don't be stupid with it. No running, no climbing, nothing strenuous for another month at least. Understood. I mean it, Hale. You push too hard, you'll regret it. I believe you. After Martha left, Rowan stood carefully, testing his weight. The leg held, still hurt but manageable. Eliza watched from the doorway. Ready to go home? More than ready. They gathered their limited supplies, mostly purchased from Callahan on credit, to be paid back later, and started the climb. It took them 3 days this time, moving slow and careful. But when they finally crested the ridge and saw the clearing where their cabin had stood, Eliza stopped. The burned timbers were still there, black and skeletal against the snow. The stone chimney stood alone, a monument to what they'd lost. "It looks worse than I remembered," she said quietly. "Then we'll make it better." They walked to the ruins together, surveying the damage. Most of the structure was gone, but the foundation was solid, and the cache still held tools, supplies, enough to start rebuilding. Rowan knelt by the ashes, running his hands through them, found a twisted piece of metal, the coffee pot he'd used every morning for 3 years. Warped and blackened, but still recognizable. He held it up to Eliza. "Salvage." She laughed, surprised. "You're going to keep that?" "Damn right, it survived, just like us." Over the next weeks, they began the work of rebuilding. Not quickly. Rowan's leg couldn't handle heavy labor yet, but steadily. One log at a time, one wall, one room. Eliza proved to be surprisingly good at construction. She had an eye for angles, for how pieces fit together, and the strength she'd built over months of hard work served her well. They worked side by side, talking through plans, adjusting designs, building something better than what they'd had before. The new cabin took shape slowly, bigger than the first, sturdier, with proper windows and a sleeping loft and enough space to move without bumping into each other. It wasn't finished yet. Wouldn't be for months, but it was theirs. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, Eliza leaned against Rowan's shoulder. "Do you think he knows yet, Marcus?" "Probably. Garrett would have started interviewing witnesses by now. Word gets around. So he knows I'm alive. Knows I'm coming for him." "Yeah." "Good." Her voice was hard. "I want him to know. I want him to spend every day wondering when the hammer's going to fall. Let him feel what I felt for 4 years." Rowan didn't answer, just held her while the sun sank below the ridge, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Winter was ending, spring was coming, and with it, justice. The telegram arrived in late May, carried up the mountain by a rider from Iron Ridge who looked half dead from the climb. Eliza read it twice, hands shaking. "Case ready. Trial set June 15th. Your testimony required. Marshall Garrett." She looked up at Rowan, who was working on the cabin's new roof. "It's time." He climbed down, took the telegram, scanned it. His jaw tightened. 3 weeks. That's not much notice." "It's enough." She folded the paper carefully. "I've been ready for this my whole life." They finished the roof that week, working long hours to get it weather tight before they had to leave. The cabin wasn't complete, still needed interior walls, proper flooring, a dozen other things, but it had 4 walls and a roof and a door that locked. Good enough. On June 1st, they started down the mountain for what they both knew might be the last time. If the trial went badly, if Marcus walked free or worse, if he had them killed before they could testify, this mountain would just be a memory. But if it went right, if justice actually worked the way it was supposed to, they could come back and finish building their life. The stakes had never been higher. Iron Ridge was busier than they'd ever seen it. Apparently word had spread about the trial. A wealthy merchant being brought down by his runaway wife made for good gossip, and people were traveling from 3 territories over to watch it happen. Callahan met them at the trading post, his expression grim. "You've stirred up a hornet's nest," he said. "Thornhill's lawyers have been through here twice already, asking questions, trying
This
to find
story
dirt
was posted
both of
on the
you.
channel west of
Did
Betrayal.
they find any?"
Please do
Rowan
not
asked.
repost it
"Nothing
in any
that'll
form.
matter in court, but they're not done trying." He lowered his voice. "And there's been other men, not lawyers, watching the roads, asking about your movements. I'd be real careful if I were you." "We're always careful," Eliza said. But her hand moved to the revolver at her hip. She wore it openly now, and nobody questioned it. Marshall Garrett had arranged for them to stay in a boarding house 2 towns over, away from the main trial location. Safer that way, he'd explained in a previous telegram. Harder for Thornhill's people to get to them. The boarding house was run by a widow named Mrs. Chen, who asked no questions and cooked meals that made Eliza want to weep after months of their own rough cooking. She showed them to a small room on the 2nd floor with a window that overlooked the street. "Marshal's orders," Mrs. Chen said. "Nobody comes up here without my say-so. And I sleep light." "Thank you," Eliza said. "Don't thank me. Just testify true and put that bastard away." Mrs. Chen's eyes were hard. "I knew a girl once married to a man like your husband. She didn't survive him. So you go in there and you make sure he pays." After she left, Eliza sat on the bed, staring at her hands. "I'm terrified," she admitted. Rowan sat beside her. "Of what specifically?" "Of seeing him again. Of having to stand in a room and look at his face and tell strangers what he did to me." Her voice shook. "Of not being believed. Of all this being for nothing." "You'll be believed?" "How can you be sure?" "Because you have evidence. Because you have witnesses. Because Garrett spent 6 months building a case that's airtight." He took her hand. "And because you're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived him once. You can survive facing him in court." "What if I freeze? What if I get up there and can't speak?" "Then you take a breath, look at me in the gallery, and remember who you are now. Not the woman he married, not the woman who ran. The woman who climbed a mountain, survived a siege, and rebuilt a life from ashes." His voice was firm. "That woman can do anything." She leaned against him, drawing strength from his presence. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything. If this goes wrong, if he walks or if something happens to me, promise you'll take that journal and make sure it gets published. Every newspaper, every authority, everyone who needs to know what kind of man he is." "Eliza, promise me." "I promise. But it's not going to come to that." "You don't know that." "No, but I believe it anyway." The trial was set to begin in the territorial courthouse, a surprisingly grand building for such a rough region, with actual columns and a proper courtroom that could seat 100 people. It was packed. Rowan and Eliza arrived early, escorted by 2 deputies Garrett had assigned for security. The crowd parted for them, whispers following in their wake. Then Eliza saw him. Marcus Thornhill sat at the defense table, flanked by 3 expensive lawyers in suits that probably cost more than most people in this territory made in a year. He looked exactly as she remembered, handsome in a cold way, with dark hair graying at the temples and eyes like chips of ice. When he saw her, he smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, like a predator recognizing prey it thought had escaped. Eliza's steps faltered. Rowan's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. "Keep walking. Don't give him the satisfaction." She forced herself forward, chin up, meeting Marcus's gaze without flinching. His smile faded. "Good." The prosecution was led by a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Wells, who'd made a name for herself taking down corrupt officials and had jumped at the chance to prosecute this case. She met with Eliza briefly before the trial began. "I've reviewed your journal," Wells said. "It's damning, but I need you to understand the defense is going to attack your character. They're going to paint you as a liar, a thief, an unstable woman who fabricated evidence out of spite." "I know. They're going to bring up your weight, your appearance, suggest that Marcus was disgusted by you, and that's why you invented these accusations." Eliza's jaw tightened. "Let them. They're going to make this ugly. I've survived ugly before." Wells studied her, then nodded. "Good. Because we're going to need that strength. Are you ready?" "I've been ready for 4 years." The trial opened with Wells laying out the charges. Fraud, smuggling, bribery, extortion, conspiracy, a litany of crimes that had the gallery murmuring. The defense objected to nearly everything, trying to get evidence thrown out on technicalities. But the judge, a weathered man named Patterson, who looked like he'd seen every kind of legal maneuvering and wasn't impressed, shut them down. "The evidence stands," he said. "Proceed, Ms. Wells." The first day was mostly procedural. Wells called witnesses who could verify the journal's contents. A clerk who'd handled some of the illegal shipments, a former business partner who'd been forced out when he refused to participate in the fraud, a customs official who'd been bribed to look the other way. Each one testified carefully, corroborating specific entries in Eliza's documentation. Marcus sat through it all with a neutral expression, occasionally whispering to his lawyers but showing no emotion. But Eliza could see the tension in his shoulders. the way his fingers drummed against the table. He was rattled, even if he wouldn't show it. On the second day, Wells called Eliza to the stand. The walk to the witness box felt like miles. Every eye in the courtroom followed her. She could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their doubt. She sat down, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Wells approached gently. "Please state your name for the record." "Eliza Hale, formerly Eliza Vance, born Eliza Thornhill." "And how do you know the defendant?" "He was my husband, for 4 years." "Can you describe the nature of your marriage?" Eliza took a breath. This was it. No more hiding. "It was a prison," she said quietly. "From the day we married, Marcus controlled every aspect of my life. Where I went, who I spoke to, what I wore, what I ate. He monitored my correspondence, my friendships, my every movement." "Did he physically harm you?" "Yes. When I displeased him, which was often. A slap here, a shove there. Nothing that would leave marks people could see." Her voice steadied. "He was very careful about that." Marcus's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection. This is hearsay and character assassination with no evidence." "Your Honor," Wells said calmly, "Mrs. Hale is testifying to her own experiences. That's not hearsay." Overruled. "Continue, Ms. Wells." "How did you discover your husband's illegal activities?" "I was looking for important papers in his office. He'd asked me to find a contract. I came across a ledger that didn't match his public accounts. When I looked closer, I realized he was keeping 2 sets of books. One for the authorities, one that showed what he was really doing." "And what did you do with this information?" "At first, nothing. I was afraid. But over the next 2 years, I started documenting everything I could find, copying pages, noting conversations I overheard, gathering evidence." She met Marcus's eyes. "Because I knew someday I'd need it to be free of him." "Why didn't you go to the authorities then?" "Because he owned them. The local marshal was on his payroll. The mayor owed him favors. I had no one to turn to who wouldn't report back to him." "So you ran." "I escaped, with the evidence, and I've been running ever since." Wells walked her through the journal entries, having Eliza explain specific transactions, name names, provide context. It took hours, meticulous and thorough. Then came cross-examination. Marcus's lead lawyer was a silver-haired man named Dalton, who moved like a shark. "Mrs. Hale," he began, voice dripping false sympathy, "or should I say Mrs. Thornhill, since you were never legally divorced. I prefer Hale." "I'm sure you do. Tell me, when you left your husband, you took a substantial amount of his money, did you not?" "I took what was mine, my dowry, which he'd invested without my permission." "Ah, but legally, upon marriage, your property became his property. So you stole from him." "I took back what he stole from me." "A convenient rationalization." Dalton smiled coldly. "You also faked your own death, paid for forged documents, deceived authorities. Those are serious crimes." "I did what I had to do to survive." "Or you did what you had to do to avoid consequences for theft." He paused. "Tell me, Mrs. Thornhill, have you always been heavy?" The courtroom went silent. Eliza felt heat rise in her face but kept her voice level. "I don't see how that's relevant. I'm establishing character. You were married to a successful, handsome man who could have had anyone. Must have been difficult knowing you weren't what he wanted." "Objection!" Wells was on her feet. "This is outrageous." "Sustained," Judge Patterson said.
This story
sharply.
was posted on
Mr.
the
Dalton,
channel west
stick
of
to
Betrayal.
relevant questions or
Please
sit
do not
down.
repost it in
But
any
the damage
form.
was done. The seed of doubt planted. Dalton shifted tactics. "This journal you claim to have kept. You wrote it yourself, correct?" "Yes." "No one else verified these entries as you made them?" "No, I was hiding what I was doing." "So we only have your word that any of it is accurate. You could have made it all up out of spite." "Why would I do that?" "Because you're an angry woman who felt scorned, who wanted revenge against a husband who found you lacking." He let the word hang. "Isn't it possible you fabricated evidence to destroy a man who rejected you?" Eliza's hands clenched, but she met Dalton's eyes without flinching. "No, it's not possible, because every entry in that journal has been corroborated by witnesses, by financial records, by documentation that exists independent of me. Ms. Wells has proven that over 2 days of testimony. So you can attack my appearance, my character, my motives all you want. The evidence speaks for itself. Does it? Or does it speak to a troubled woman with an axe to grind? It speaks to a man who's committed dozens of crimes and thought he'd never face consequences. Her voice rose. A man who hurt me, controlled me, and would have killed me if I'd stayed. I didn't fabricate anything. I documented the truth. And now you're scrambling because that truth is going to bury him. Dalton's smile thinned. No further questions. Eliza stepped down, shaking but standing tall. She'd done it, told her story, stood her ground. Now it was up to the jury. The next 2 days brought more witnesses. Wells built her case methodically. Financial experts analyzing the journal's entries, law enforcement officials confirming corruption, even one of Marcus's former associates who'd turned state's witness. The defense fought hard, but they were losing ground. On the 5th day, both sides rested. Closing arguments began. Dalton went first, painting Marcus as a successful businessman victimized by a vindictive wife. He emphasized the lack of physical evidence of abuse, the fact that Eliza had stolen money and fled, her clear motivation for revenge. Ladies and gentlemen, he concluded, my client is not perfect, but he is not a criminal. He is a man whose trust was betrayed by someone he loved. Don't compound that betrayal by convicting him based on the fabrications of an embittered woman. Then Wells stood. She was magnificent. She took the jury through the evidence piece by piece, showing how it all connected, how witness after witness had confirmed Eliza's documentation. She read entries from the journal alongside corresponding financial records that proved their accuracy. The defense wants you to believe Mrs. Hale made this all up, Wells said. But you can't fake corroboration from a dozen independent witnesses. You can't fabricate financial records that existed before she ever started documenting them. The evidence is real, the crimes are real, and Marcus Thornhill is guilty. She paused, looking at each juror. Mrs. Hale didn't ask to be in this position. She didn't want to spend years afraid, running, hiding. She wanted a normal life. But her husband took that from her, took her freedom, her dignity, her sense of safety. And when she finally found the courage to escape, he sent armed men to kill her rather than let her live free. Wells's voice hardened. That is who Marcus Thornhill is, a man who would rather murder his wife than face consequences for his actions. Don't let him win. Don't let him walk out of here free to hurt more people. Find him guilty. Give Mrs. Hale the justice she's earned. She sat down. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Eliza and Rowan waited in a small room adjacent to the courtroom, unable to eat, unable to relax, just waiting. What if they don't believe me? Eliza whispered. They will. You can't know that. I know you, I know what you survived, and I know truth when I hear it. He took her hand. The jury will too. When the bailiff finally came to bring them back, Eliza's heart was hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The courtroom was packed again. Marcus sat at his table, expression carefully neutral, but Eliza saw the fear in his eyes. He knew. The jury filed in, faces serious. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Patterson asked. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of fraud, how do you find? Guilty. Eliza's breath caught. On the charge of smuggling? Guilty. On the charge of bribery? Guilty. Charge after charge. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Marcus's composure cracked. His lawyers were already whispering urgently about appeals. But it didn't matter. He'd been found guilty. In front of a packed courtroom, in front of the people he'd thought he controlled, he'd been exposed and convicted. Eliza felt tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears. Relief. Release. It was over. Judge Patterson spoke over the noise. Marcus Thornhill, you have been found guilty on 17 counts of fraud, smuggling, bribery, and conspiracy. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. Until then, you are remanded to custody without bail. Bailiff, take him into custody. As they led Marcus away in chains, he looked at Eliza one last time. Not with hatred, not with anger, with disbelief. He'd never thought she'd win, Never thought the soft, frightened woman he'd married could possibly destroy him. He'd been wrong. Outside the courthouse, Eliza collapsed against Rowan, sobbing. "It's done," she gasped. "It's really done. It's done. You won. We won." He held her while she cried out 4 years of fear and pain and rage. People walked past, some stopping to congratulate her, others just watching. Marshal Garrett approached, tipping his hat. "Well done, Mrs. Hale. That took real courage. Thank you for everything. Just doing my job. Though I'll admit I've never seen anyone document evidence quite like you did. You should consider law enforcement as a career." That got a watery laugh from Eliza. "I think I'm done with crime, on both sides." "Fair enough. What will you do now?" She looked at Rowan. "We're going home." 2 weeks later, they attended the sentencing. Marcus Thornhill was given 15 years in a territorial prison with no possibility of parole. His assets were seized to compensate his victims. His business empire collapsed within days. He was escorted out of the courtroom a broken man. Eliza felt nothing watching him go. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just emptiness where the fear used to be. "Is it supposed to feel like this?" she asked Rowan as they left the courthouse for the last time. "Like what?" "Like nothing. I thought I'd feel triumphant, or at least relieved, but I just feel tired. That's normal. You've been fighting for so long your body doesn't know how to stop." He squeezed her hand. "Give it time. The relief will come." They stayed in town another week, tying up loose ends. Eliza met with Wells to discuss civil suits against some of Marcus's associates, gave interviews to newspapers that wanted to write about the case, even received a letter from a women's group asking if she'd speak about her experience. She declined. She told her story once, under oath. That was enough. What she wanted now was to go home and live quietly. The climb back up the mountain felt different this time. Lighter, somehow, like she was shedding weight with each step. When they finally reached the clearing, the half-finished cabin stood waiting. "Ready to finish what we started?" Rowan asked. "More than ready." They worked through the summer, completing the cabin properly. Eliza planted her garden, not just practical vegetables, but flowers, too. Bright splashes of color against the mountain browns and greens. She learned to preserve food, to make jam, to can vegetables for winter. Rowan built furniture, carved decorations, made their home beautiful as well as functional. By autumn, the cabin was complete. 2 rooms, a sleeping loft, real glass windows, a porch where they could sit and watch the sunset over the valley. It was perfect. One evening in late September, they sat on that porch, wrapped in blankets against the cooling air. "I was thinking," Eliza said, "about next spring." "What about it?" "We should get some chickens, maybe a goat, start building up livestock." "You planning to stay a while then?" She smiled. "Maybe forever." "Forever's a long time." "I know." She leaned against him. "But I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be, or anyone else I'd rather be with." Rowan was quiet for a moment, then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A ring. Simple gold band, slightly tarnished, obviously old. "This was my mother's," he said quietly. "Only thing of value she owned. She gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to someone worth giving it to." Eliza stared at the ring. "I know we're already married legally," Rowan continued, "but that was paperwork. Survival. This is," he paused, searching for words, "this is me choosing you. Not because I need you to survive, but because I want you in my life.
This
Every
story
day,
was posted
forever,
on the channel
if you'll
West
have
of
me."
Betrayal. Please do not
Rowan,
repost it in
You
any
don't have
form.
to answer now. I just wanted you to know. Yes. He blinked. Yes? Yes, I'll have you. Yes to forever. Yes to all of it. She was crying again, but smiling. "I choose you too." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They sat there as night fell, holding each other, watching stars emerge one by one. Behind them, the cabin glowed with lamplight. Their home. Their sanctuary. The mountain had tested them, had taken everything they had and demanded more. But it had also given them something precious. Freedom, strength, each other. The town had been wrong about Eliza. She hadn't lasted a week. She'd lasted through a brutal winter, a siege, a trial, and come out stronger than anyone expected. Not despite how she looked, but because of who she was beneath the surface. Resilient, determined, unbreakable. She'd proven that strength didn't come in the package people expected, that survival wasn't about being perfect or fitting someone else's ideal. It was about refusing to quit even when quitting seemed like the only option. Marcus Thornhill had tried to own her, control her, destroy her. He'd failed. And now, finally, Eliza was free. Free to build the life she wanted. Free to love openly. Free to be exactly who she was without apology or shame. The world had underestimated her because of how she looked. That world was wrong. Because here, on this mountain where only the strongest survived, she hadn't just endured. She'd thrived. And as winter approached once again, she sat with her husband in front of the home they'd built together, wearing his mother's ring, planning for the future. Not running anymore. Not hiding. Just living. Finally, completely, utterly free. The end.